Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 3rd of July, now it's 10 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments that you may find interesting, and I will start with a quick summary of the situation on the front line, if I may. And first, of course, Kherson region. As you know, during the previous week, Ukrainian side did manage to cross the Dnieper River in Aleshki direction and establish a small bridgehead right next to Antonovsky Bridge. But last few days we are receiving reports that Russian side did conduct operation on this direction, and according to latest news, Ukrainian bridgehead has been neutralized. Many Ukrainian soldiers who did survive these battles escape on the right bank, but according to some sources, it's possible that few dozens of Ukrainian soldiers are spread on the left bank and are trying to hide anyway they can. But overall assumption situation is that this attempt of Zelensky's regime to establish bridgehead on the left bank right next to Aleshki did fail them, as it was expected basically. And we also have information that some Ukrainian forces did establish the presence on the islands in the Dnieper Delta in direction of Gola Pristan, and according to some reports, small groups of Ukrainian forces maybe even enter the left bank, but because this we are talking about small units like 2, 3 or 5 to 10, not even platoon, not even full-blooded platoons, it's highly unlikely that these forces will be able to establish any significant bridgehead on the left bank. They will operate as recon groups, most likely. So this latest activity of Ukrainian forces in direction of Kherson region did fail, but still, I guess Zelensky's regime did try to gather some information during these operations, and I'm still remaining on my position that in next couple of weeks probably Ukrainian forces will try to conduct mass crossing of the Dnieper River, and their main goal will be to cut not just breach first line of defense or second or third, but to cut off a land bridge between Crimea and Kherson region. I don't think they will ever be able to succeed in this, but as we all know perfectly well, Zelensky's regime never did care about losses in Ukrainian army. So even if Ukrainian generals will say to Zelensky that mass crossing of the Dnieper and attempt to conduct offensive operations in direction of bridgehead between Crimea and Kherson region will be suicidal operation, I guess they will be forced anyway to conduct such a operation. So I'm still remaining on my initial take on entire this situation in Kherson direction, and I think whenever Zelensky's regime is planning to conduct second wave of offensive in Zaporozhye direction, Zaporozhye sector of the front, and South Donetsk sector of the front, probably simultaneously we will see attempt of the mass crossing of Dnieper in Kherson region. Because for now Ukrainian forces definitely are not ready for to conduct such operation. Probably it will take at least 2 or 3 weeks before all the preparations in Kherson region will be done by Ukrainian forces. And yet again, Russian intelligence is very active in this area, like in any other area really, and whenever Russian forces will spot concentration of Ukrainian manpower or boats or some other equipment, there will be strikes on these forces. And as I said, man, this entire operation may end even before it begins, and the Russian side may destroy Ukrainian units on the right bank of the river whenever they will start concentrating to conduct offensive, mass crossing and offensive in direction of left bank. But yet again, let's see how it will how situation will develop. Despite these high risks, I guess Zelensky's regime will force Ukrainian army anyway to conduct a mass crossing of the Dnieper. When it comes to Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front, it's mainly it's still operational pause, but we did have some reports that in Orekhovo direction, Ukrainian forces conducted local scale offensive in direction of Rabotina. Unsuccessfully, they gained some few hundred meters initially, but then Russian side did counterattack and regain most of the lost territories. So it's a positional clashes in this area. Same we can say about Pitikhatki, Zhiribyanki direction. It's still, even though there are some local short clashes between the sides, it's still operational pause. Little bit more activity we can see in this bridgehead that Russia controls between Ugledar and Gulyai-Pole. But yet again, Russian strongholds are managing to repel all the offensive operations of Ukrainian forces. In this area, main direction, as I understand, main direction of Ukrainian attacks is Volodino, this settlement here. But for this, at least for this time, they had no more or less significant success in this area. We also had reports that Ukrainian forces did try to conduct offensive operation from Ugledar direction, but yet again did fail, didn't achieve much. So it's operational pause. It's operational pause. Sides are basically conducting recon operations, mainly Ukrainian side, and for the last few weeks we more often see situation when Ukrainian units are sent to the front line without support of heavy military equipment. And I did share on my Telegram page some videos. I cannot share others because footage is too graphic, and just recently I did share one video of destruction of Ukrainian recon group, and some of the members of our community did give me kind of warning or advice to not to share that kind of footage, even though in comparison to some other videos that we are that are published on internet, that footage was not that graphic really. But still I want to keep this project family friendly, as one we said, and therefore I will try to share only videos with the minimal graphic frames in it. But yes, as a fact of the matter, maybe Zelensky's regime did receive some orders from the Western masters. Maybe some other reasons are taking place, but more often we are seeing that Ukrainian infantry is sent to the front line without support of tanks or armored personnel carriers. Maybe Russian side was so successful in destroying armored vehicles of the Ukrainian forces that they have some shortages now in this type of equipment. That's also a possibility. But by the way, of course, main top main direction of attention worldwide now is Energodar city and Zaporozhye nuclear power plant right next to Kakhovka water reservoir. Probably everybody is stressed because of this constant statements from Zelensky's regime about some provocation on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Everybody is understand that these statements, not just from Zelensky's regime, but also from some representatives of Western elites, are nothing else other than preparation of the ground for possible provocation in direction of Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. And well, today we had a statement from aid of General Director of Russian Rosenergoatom Corporation, which is responsible for all atomic energy sector of the Russian Federation, Rinat Karcha, who said that these constant statements from Ukrainian side or Western side about Zaporozhye nuclear power plant definitely indicates that Western elites want to use provocation in Zaporozhye nuclear power plant as a reasoning or as a justification of direct involvement in this conflict by NATO or NATO member states. Well, that's a possibility, of course. That's a possibility, of course, but to be honest, I don't think Western elites completely lost their mind, and they will use this provocation for direct involvement of the NATO itself in this conflict, or open involvement. We all know that NATO is already involved, but they still have a plausible deniability on their hands. So I don't think this possible provocation will be used to by NATO member states to openly enter this conflict and basically declare war on Russia. But this provocation definitely will be used for further escalation of the situation. Further escalation of the situation, and maybe after that provocation, some NATO member states will begin their activity in attempt to establish control over the western regions of Ukraine, as I was predicted, because I'm remaining on my initial reading of this big picture. I'm quite sure that Poland will definitely try to establish control over the western regions of Ukraine that was part of the Poland before Second World War. So Romania probably will do the same, and even though some members of our community from Hungary disagree with me about possibility that Hungary will also try to establish control over the Transcarpathia region, where ethnic Hungarians are living predominantly. I still think if time comes when the full-scale disintegration of Ukraine will take full scale, then I don't think Hungary will stay away and won't try to establish control over the Transcarpathia. Probably Budapest will take steps to make sure that residents of Transcarpathia, including ethnic Hungarians, are safe, and probably they will try to establish control over the Transcarpathia. So that's my take on it. Of course, Rinat Karcha, aide of General Director of Rosenergoatom, probably has some inside information because of his position. But yet again, I just don't think that Western elites are that stupid, really, or that suicidal, that they will use this provocation to provoke direct conflict between NATO and Russia. No, this provocation will be used to demonize Russia, of course, and also to justify actions of some NATO member states like Poland, Romania, and others that will try to establish control over the western regions of Ukraine. By this provocation may become a beginning of the end of Ukraine as a state, really. I hope I did explain myself well enough, but of course the topic of Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is one of the major topics, not just in Russia but worldwide. So unfortunately, as time goes by, less and less reasons we have for optimism, because I don't think all this media campaign was done by Western elites for nothing. They have plans in the place, and they will probably act according to these plans before NATO summit will take place in Vilnius on 11th, 12th July. Let's see. Let me continue with the summary of the situation on the front line. So Donetsk direction, of course, main hot points, it's Marinka and Avdiivka as usual, but as usually it is. But we don't have any reports about some breakthroughs from anyone side. It's still positional battles between the forces. Bakhmut direction is very active, especially when it comes to southern part of the Bakhmut, southern flank of Bakhmut. It's Kurdyumovka, where some fierce battles are taking place between the Russian and Ukrainian forces. Here we have some contradicting accounts from different sources. One side is saying that they did enter Kurdyumovka and almost fully control this. That's a Ukrainian position, but Russian forces are, and Russian side is remaining on the position that Kurdyumovka is under full Russian control, but Ukrainian forces did manage to cross this channel right next to this settlement, and the fighting now is going on to control this forest line right next to channel. But yet again, during the day, we will learn some more information, of course, and I will share all the additional news on the Telegram page. When it comes to Bakhmut itself, Ukrainian forces are not trying to enter Bakhmut directly. All we know at this moment that there were some clashes in the southern part of the Bakhmut, but city is under full Russian control. Ukrainian forces did not manage to enter Bakhmut itself. But this morning, yesterday late afternoon and this morning, we did had some reports that Ukrainian forces conducted some offensive operations in direction of Berkhovka here, and according to some reports, forward units of Ukrainian forces enter southern sector of the Berkhovka itself. Yet again, officially this information is not confirmed, but during the day we will probably have some additional news, and reports were that initially Ukrainian forces did manage to achieve some significant success on the local scale. They move forward for quite a few hundred meters, but then Russian side conduct counteroffensive and regain control over the lost territories. So it's severe clashes are taking place in this area. Of course, Yahidna is also hot point, one of the main directions of this local scale offensives of the Ukrainian forces. But Yahidna and the northern route of communication between Bakhmut and Krasnaya Gora still under full Russian control for this moment, even though Ukrainian forces can shell this area with long-range artillery. And Solidar direction, not that much changes here. In previous days we did see some severe clashes between the sides, and maybe now both sides are taking kind of time out to reinforce and receive some additional ammunition, and in next few days we will probably see more activity in this area. Well, when it comes to Seversk direction, there was reports that Russian side, both sides were conducting simultaneously offensive operations in different sectors of the front. Fierce clashes are taking place for control of Belogorivka, but yet again, no one side is able to achieve some significant success or full control over this settlement, and fighting is going on for control, if it's even possible, for this forested area here. It's a massive forested area, and before Russian side will conduct large-scale offensive operation to establish full control over the Yampol, Liman, and entire this sector of the front, and I don't think it will be even theoretically possible to have full control over this forested area here. It's too many places to hide, not just manpower but also equipment. And once Russian side will conduct a large-scale offensive and establish control over the Yampol, Liman sector, Seversk will become under operational encirclement, and then we will probably see cleansing operation on this on the western part of northern part of Belogorivka in this forest, and this will take place, I believe, in next month and a half time, because in my reading of this picture, before end of this summer, Russian side will begin operations in direction of Kramatorsk, Slavyansk. It may seem fantastic right now or unrealistic, but things may change very rapidly on the front line in next 1 or 2 months time, before end of summer, in the in the first half of the autumn. And by the way, Kupiansk direction also hot point, but we did not have any additional information about any large-scale operations in this direction from anyone side. We had few days ago reports that Zelensky's regime did reinforce Kupiansk garrison and defense lines here, and probably it will take some time for Russian forces to conduct some recon operation to receive good enough information about forces that are opposing them, their locations, their weapon systems, and so on, to prepare a plan and conduct and continue their offensive. But in this area, it's the Russian side that are on offensive, at least for last 2-3 weeks. And when it comes to Kharkov region and this bridgehead that Ukrainian side controls right next to Belgorod region, it's artillery duels between the sides. And yet again, as I mentioned yesterday, because there are so many reports that Ukrainian side is evacuating from Kharkov manufacturing plants, workforce, businesses, and even some state institution offices, especially archives. I guess Kiev do have some information that there will be large-scale Russian offensive operation in the direction of Kharkov, and they are conducting some preparations on this matter, and that's why they are evacuating state institutions, archives, plants, and so on. Otherwise, there is no logical explanation of this kind of actions, isn't it? So maybe in foreseeable future, in next couple of months, we will see large-scale offensive operation in direction of Kharkov also. And yes, and this is it for a quick summary of the situation on the front line. No breakthrough from anyone side really, and even though it's months now since the this Ukrainian counteroffensive had begun. For this moment, we clearly see no any significant success on part of Ukrainian forces. As I predicted for many months, man, that this so-called counteroffensive will be suicidal operation for Ukrainian forces, and that's what it is really. And by the way, I did share on my Telegram page information that during the nighttime Russian side did conducted strikes on mainly drone strikes on Ukrainian military and logistical infrastructures, and explosions were heard in Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk, Kherson and Nikolaev regions. During the day, Russian Defense Ministry probably will share additional information about areas that were targeted and about damage that was done to Ukrainian military and logistical infrastructure. Let me continue with some other news now, and this is, by the way, RIA Novosti's report, according to which during the previous weeks of fighting in Lugansk in LPR direction, Ukrainian forces lost about 3,000 military personnel. About 50 Ukrainian local scale offensive operations were repealed, and 14 sabotage groups were found and neutralized. So even though Lugansk direction not that active in comparison to some other sectors of the front, still it's heavy fighting are taking place in certain directions, and according to Andrei Marochko, military expert from LPR, during the previous week of fighting, Ukrainian forces lost in this direction, in LPR direction, 3,000 military personnel killed and wounded. Next information is from TASS news agency, and the Russian Defense Ministry. This news bulletin is about information that Russian Defense Ministry did share with public, according to which Russian forces did conduct strikes on train stations in Kharkov region, to be precise, in Balakleya and Chuguev, and as a result, Ukrainian military equipment was destroyed in this area. So I guess lately Russian side is more active in terms of intelligence gathering, and whenever Russian forces do have confirmed information that some concentration of Ukrainian manpower on military equipment have been found, there are strikes conducted immediately in those directions, and maybe because of high effectiveness of these strikes, we are seeing now on the Zaporozhye sector of the front line, especially in Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sector of the front line, situations when Ukrainian infantry is sent to battle without support of armored personnel carriers and armored vehicles, basically. Probably Zelensky's regime truly has some significant problems with armored vehicles, despite all the attempts from the Western elites to supply hundreds and thousands of armored personnel carriers and armored cars and so tanks and so on. Well, Russian side is quite successful in destroying this equipment, and as a result, Ukrainian forces are conducting operations more often, not always, but more often, without any support of armored personnel carriers and the tanks. Let me continue now, and this is also TASS news agency's report, according to which this is interesting, by the way. Russian MP and head of Duma, Russian Parliament's Committee on Defense, Andrei Kartapolov, did made a statement that despite the fact that Wagner is no longer active in the zone of special military operation, there is no need for mobilization. To be honest, I don't think it's Kartapolov that makes decisions about mobilization. This individual quite often does make some statements that are not really always received well by public, or not really understood by public kindly. But when it comes to mobilization itself, to be honest, I do have a different take on this topic, and I think it's quite clear now. If we are analyzing situation on the front line, it's quite clear that Russian forces do need some additional reserves, even though they have reserves, few 100,000 military personnel. But I guess, even though I'm not military expert, so I can be mistaken, but my reading of picture is that Russian forces in special military operation do need some additional 300,000 to 500,000 reserves, at least. And if my analytics are correct, then probably we will see at least one more wave of partial mobilization in Russian Federation. But yet again, officially, no one ever said that mobilization will take place. It's just my guess and my reading of big picture. But I guess at least 300,000 to 500,000 reservists will probably be mobilized sometime in the future. To be honest, I'm surprised that we did not see second wave of mobilization already. I was expecting mobilization to take place in May, at least in June, first month of the summer, but it did not. It did not happen. But yet again, let's see how the situation develops. But in my understanding, mobilization is needed to make sure that Russian units on the front line do have enough reserves and do have enough force to not just defend their positions, but also to conduct offensive operations, large-scale offensive operations also. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report about statements that Dmitry Medvedev, former Russian president and current deputy chairman of the Security Council, made. This time he spoke about overall situation between Russia and the Western elites, and he did said that situation is very difficult. He did even compare current situation with the Caribbean crisis, and Medvedev did said that there are some risks that escalation between the sides may reach some previously unseen levels, and including nuclear confrontation. And he gave us two reasons. He basically said that some tectonic division is happening in the world. One side is the West, and on the other side is the rest of the world. And if situation will continue to move in direction of further escalation, then reading of the future in different parts of the world, different reading of the future, how things should develop, and how world should move forward, may cause some extreme levels of confrontation. And according to him, this confrontation will be long, in long terms, even for decades. So basically, it's a kind of Cold War 2.0, when if before it was Soviet Union and allies and US and allies, now it will be significantly different. It will be Western world and the rest of the world. And it's I mean, it's already, we can already see that world definitely moving in this direction, which is unfortunate, really, because I don't think anybody, especially us ordinary citizens anywhere in this world, do need any confrontation whatsoever. We don't. It's elites that are, you know, constantly acting like crazy. But you know, and by the way, Medvedev also spoke about nukes. And well, he said that use of nuclear weapons, it's not taboo. Everyone should understand that usage of nuclear weapons is not taboo, because it was already done. Well known from which side, which country, and where. So this is very significant statement yet again from Medvedev, especially this last part, because indirectly Medvedev did said that well, nuclear weapons have been used previously, and it's not taboo, and nuclear weapons can be used again. And maybe he wants to say, and this is my interpretation, by the way, maybe he wants to say that if Russia is forced to use nukes, then Russia will use nukes. And this is kind of warning, one more warning for Western elites. But yet again, let's hope nothing like that will happen, because it will truly be global scale disaster. I mean, at one point, elites from the so-called elites should realize that if they don't stop, if they continue to escalate, they may destroy entire world. That's what's gonna happen. So maybe some adequacy will prevail, and we will see the escalation. Not right now, not in a month or 2 or 3 months time, but eventually, hopefully, we will reach a situation when further escalation will definitely be total destruction of this world, and that may force elites to begin the escalating process. Let me continue. This is TASS News Agency's report about Kadyrov. During the previous days, some rumors were circulating on in Russian segment of internet, maybe in the Western media. Was some articles even about it, that Ramzan Kadyrov is in poor health, and he is in very difficult situation. And yesterday Kadyrov did respond to it, and he did upload video together with his friend Adam Delimkhanov, his friend and Russian MP Adam Delimkhanov, and they were having tea and discussing some topics, and well, they did presented factual material that Kadyrov is okay. And by the way, rumors were also about Adam Delimkhanovich himself. So both was on that video footage, and they are okay. So I mean, too many rumors lately, too many rumors, and that's why it's better to wait for some additional information before take this information as a fact, these rumors, because you know, it's difficult times, and too much information, unconfirmed information, too much rumors, and it's truly difficult to understand what the hell is going on time to time. Let me continue now. And by the way, this information is about PMC Wagner. On one of the Russian main channels, Russia 1, in one of the programs, information was presented that PMC Wagner did receive from state 860 billion rubles for that's directly to PMC Wagner, and also holding Concord, which also belongs to head of PMC Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, did receive 845 billion rubles for its services that this company was providing. And Concord is a civilian project, while PMC Wagner is a private military company, but Concord is catering company, as I understand, and they had some contracts with Russian state institutions, including defense ministry and so on. So yes, PMC Yevgeny Prigozhin and his companies did had some contracts with state, which is normal. They did receive billions and billions of rubles for the services. Well, and what really? And what? I mean, what is unfortunate that some kind of blackmailing is taking place in Russia, in some circles of Russian media, and it seems like some officials are now challenging each other, which will say something more, which will criticize Wagner or Prigozhin in more extreme ways. I mean, this is not a good sign, man. This is not a good sign. And media, state-run media, at least partially, also are involved in this blackmailing campaign. And for example, these reports on Russian TV that Wagner and Prigozhin's other companies did receive billions. And what? They didn't deserve it, or what? Wagnerites fight for Russian interests. PMC Wagner fighters not just fight, but thousands of them died for Russian interests, and thousands of them wounded during these fierce fights. And they achieved extremely significant successes on the front line, and it's extremely unnoble, it's extremely low level, in my opinion. It's extremely disgraceful steps, I will say, been made by some officials and some so-called media personalities who are now actively involved in this blackmailing campaign. They have no drop of dignity, those individuals, man. That's what I will say. They have no drop of dignity, those. It's very unfortunate, man. It's very unfortunate when like that, in a second, entire cluster that are close to state institutions are writing off all the successes, all the good stuff that Wagnerites did. I mean, of course, no one is saying that this armed rebellion was good stuff. No, it was. I don't even understand how Prigozhin even come up with this idea, man. I just when I'm thinking, not to analyze what did take place, I just don't understand why he did it. I mean, why? I don't know, but they made Prigozhin made mistake. With this armed rebellion, we can say whatever we want about that armed rebellion itself. And by the way, I said many times before that public was united, and public will never support any kind of regime change in Russia. But by the way, Prigozhin never said that he's against Putin or against legitimate institutions. He had some issues with the leadership of defense ministry, and of course he should resolve these issues in peaceful ways. That's why I find it difficult to understand why he start this armed rebellion. I mean, maybe we don't know something. Maybe, not just maybe, but we definitely don't know true reasoning behind the actions of the Prigozhin. And maybe we will never know it. But yet again, I don't think it's fair now to demonize Wagner PMC and to destroy all the companies that Prigozhin owns or are connected with Prigozhin, because after all, this company, by the way, Concord, this catering company, yesterday I read the information that thousands of people will lose their jobs now. And there were reports that many other companies that were affiliated with Prigozhin did also start closing down, shutting down, and yet again, tens of hundreds of and probably thousands of people will lose their jobs. And who is benefiting from it? I mean, who? So, well, maybe it's not popular nowadays to say any good word about PMC Wagner, but I don't give a damn, man. I don't give a damn. We should stay true to ourselves, first of all, and Wagnerites deserve all the respect for all they done to defend Russia. And I think it's a huge mistake on part of some media outlets and on part of some officials to blackmail PMC Wagner. It's a huge mistake. It not looks good, man. Nah. Let me continue now, and by the way, situation is so strange when it comes to PMC that anybody can end up in trouble just for saying few positive words about Wagner PMC. And some bloggers and big names in Russian blogosphere and some war correspondent, military correspondents already have been attacked. Not just criticized, but attacked for their critical points of view on certain decisions, for example, that was made by leadership of Russian Defense Ministry. Now or before. Because these individuals that are now participating in this blackmailing campaign, they were probably waiting for a moment to attack everyone that they don't like. Because, as I said, they have no drop of dignity, man, those elements. But anyway, let me continue now. And this is TASS News Agency's report. according to which Zelensky did went to Odessa region yesterday. I did share on my Telegram page a video with Zelensky. He was there's some video footage and you can see it on my Telegram page. He was kind of lost during one of the meetings. Maybe he was scared or he was under influence of some substances, who knows. Well, this visit in Odessa region I did read as one more indicator that Zelensky's regime is planning mass crossing of the Dnieper river, because forces that will participate in this mass crossing, if it will even take place, are located in Kherson region itself, in Nikolaev and Odessa regions. But yet again, let's wait and see. But as we know perfectly well, whenever Zelensky is visiting any city, during his visit, that city never becoming under fire of Russian forces. So Zelensky is safe. I guess Prime Minister of Israel, former Prime Minister of Israel, was absolutely correct when he said that Putin personally promised him that Russian side will do nothing against Zelensky personally to neutralize him. And well, if Putin did promise this to former Prime Minister of Israel, we can say that he did kept his word. And Zelensky is free to run around Ukraine whenever he wants and wherever he wants, and nothing is happening to him, and he should not be scared, at least from Russians, for Russian missiles and bombs. If he will be neutralized, probably by his own entourage, under orders of Washington and London. And that's why I said quite a few times before that if Zelensky is clever enough, he will understand when it's time to run, and he will run for Israel. Western elites, I don't think they want to see him in the West. So when Zelensky will run, if he will manage to do so, he will end up in Israel, in my understanding. Let me continue now. And by the way, I just spoke about Israel, and the next news is about Israeli activity. RIA News is reporting that 6 Israeli fighter jets, on a picture here is F-15, yes, F-15s, and also 4 F-15s and 2 F-16s did conduct operations in Syria. Once again, it's the usual stuff. Syrian air defense systems did try to deal with this situation, but we all understand that unfortunately Syria don't really have that capable air defense systems to deal with all the aerial targets. And by the way, when it comes to Israel, we also had the information that during the night time, Israel did conduct operation on the west bank of the Jordan and the Jordan River, and according to latest news, during these operations, 4 civilians were killed and dozens of civilians were wounded. Unfortunately, confrontation between Israelis and Palestinians are, not stopping. And to be honest, I don't even know when this and how this conflict will end. I just it's just sad to see that it's ordinary civilians, man, ordinary citizens like us that are casualties of this main casualties of this tragic confrontation. Let me continue now, and by the way, well, when I see this information, I did think that Israel also conducted airstrikes on the West Bank, but no, Israel did conducted airstrikes on Syria and ground operation on the West Bank. Let me continue, and this is also interesting news, which is reported by RIA Novosti. Scholz, German Chancellor Scholz, refused to deliver to Zelensky's regime long-range Taurus missiles. Few months ago, in May, if I'm not mistaken, Defense Minister of Ukraine did almost demand from Germany to provide these long-range missiles, and he even said that if Germany is not able to provide these weapons now, they should start producing these weapons immediately to give it to Zelensky's regime. And by the way, how crazy is that? That this Zelensky and his associates are now not just asking, but basically demanding from Western states money and weapons. Which is on its own quite crazy story, but well, that's what is happening when you unconditionally supporting some war criminals and terrorists. They start believing in themselves. They are starting to believe that they mean something, or they are like a center of the universe when they are not. And well, Scholz, even though he's on its own is a puppet of the true masters of the Western world, he's still in much higher position that entire Zelensky's regime ever will be. And yes, he said no, there will be no Taurus missiles for Zelensky's regime, and main reason is that according to this news bulletin, Germany don't want its weapons to be used on Russian soil against Russian cities, because they know perfectly well that any long-range weaponry that Zelensky's regime did receive from United Kingdom or US have been used already on Russian soil against Russian citizens. Well, let's see how Washington will react on it, because as we know, Washington is actively working on topic of deliveries of attacking long-range missiles to Zelensky's regime. So if Washington plans to deliver attacks to Ukraine, or maybe even already did deliver, then I guess White House will pressure Germany, and very same Scholz may come up tomorrow and say that you know he received some strong arguments that he should you know, provide Ukraine with these missiles, because as I said, Scholz on its own is a puppet, so he can try to act as an independent politician, but when big boss will call from White House, he will obey. He will obey from White House or from whatever place, because let's be honest, man, we don't really know who those people are that really run Western world. It's clearly not Scholz, not Macron, not Biden, for God's sake, isn't it? Biden cannot run nothing whatsoever. So someone must pulling the strings, isn't it? So let me continue now. RT is reporting that Japan exempts Russian energy projects from sanctions. Well, not surprising really. As we know, Japan has some heavy investments in some Russian energy projects, Sakhalin 1, Sakhalin 2, LNG 2, Arctic LNG 2, and Japan is heavily dependent on imports of energy sources. It will be LNG, oil, or whatever. And well, in one hand, they won't act extremely hawkish or aggressive towards Russia. They are not hiding their animosity towards Russian Federation, but at the very same time, time to time they have to go, I mean, Japanese elites have to go through reality check. And when that happens, they begin to realize that politics and ideology is one thing, but reality is different, very different stuff. And in reality, they need Russia. Russia don't really need Japan in any ways. I mean, in any ways. Yes, Japan produces great cars, great technologies. I mean, phones, notebooks, you name it. But and what? Russia also does produce some goods, and China does produce some goods. India, in Indonesia, I don't know, many other countries, Brazil. So, to be honest, Japan does need Russia. When Russia can survive without Japan, well enough. So it will be good if Japanese elites will go through reality check more often. So maybe they will realize that they have no right to destroy relationships with Russia like they were doing in previous months. Who knows? Okay, let me continue. And by the way, this is also interesting. RT is reporting that since the beginning of this year, investors withdraw their funds from European stocks for nearly $30 billion, which may not sound extremely big number when it comes to Europe, entire Europe. But this is just the beginning. This is just the first few months of the year, and I guess this is beginning of the trend. And investors from outside of the Western world will definitely intensify the activity in this direction, and eventually a European economy will probably lose hundreds of billions of dollars, or maybe even trillions of dollars. Who knows? And I'm quite sure not just outsiders will withdraw their funds from European market, but also Europeans themselves, because they will stop believing in Europe's economy and in European companies that are losing markets all around the world, or losing credibility. So this is very worrisome development for EU member states. But yet again, I mean, do European elites care about it? I don't think so, because they are the people who provoke all these crises in the first place. And a few more information also about some economical stuff. Well, Financial Times did report, and this is TASS News Agency's article on report in Financial Times that excuse me, that EU is considering possibility to allow Russian Rossельхозbank to create some additional company, bank, let's say, which will be connected to SWIFT, and this way, according to this report, EU leadership is planning to convey Moscow to prolong grain deal. But well, it's hard to tell what Moscow will do in connection to this grain deal. We did see so many times statements that from high-ranking officials that grain deal is not working for Russia, and Russia will not prolong this deal. But then we see prolongation once, prolongation twice, and now we are also in the situation when strong statements were made by high-ranking Russian officials yet again that Moscow, from Moscow point of view, there is no reason to prolong grain deal. Just recently, when Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov did spoke about it, but well, who knows what will happen when statements are not supported by actions once, twice, third time, and so on. Then it's difficult to understand what those statements mean, or if they even mean anything anymore. So that's why it will be logical to say that Russia side probably won't prolong grain deal, which will expire on 17th of July. But yet again, anything is possible. Maybe this step from EU to connect to SWIFT new bank that will be created by Selhos Bank, Rossellhos Bank, maybe this step will be enough to persuade Moscow to continue this deal. Who knows? Who knows? But there is some negotiations still on this topic, and this is RIA Novosti's report, last news for today's first update. And according to high-ranking official of Russian Central Bank, Alla Bakina, Russia is actively working now, Central Bank of Russian Federation actively working now to introduce Mir cards, Russian Mir cards that are alternatives to MasterCard, for example, to 5 or 6 countries just in this year. So work is in active pace or active phase, and Central Bank is trying to promote this Mir card so that Russian tourists, whenever they are visiting these countries, will have opportunity to pay for services that they are receiving, for everything basically, with these cards. Because as you know, a MasterCard, for example, is blocked in Russia. We cannot have MasterCard or cannot use MasterCard outside of Russia. And Mir is a Russian alternative, and well, if 5-6 countries will accept Mir card in this year, I guess this trend will continue, and in 3 to 5 years time, at least half of the world will accept Mir, which is great success, which will be great success for Russian banking system, and one more huge step in terms of liberation from influence of Western banks and banking system. And eventually, I hope BRICS will come up with the idea to create, universal payment system that will operate in BRICS nations and in all the countries that want to be associated with BRICS or have some good and friendly relationships with BRICS nations. And that will be, next step to liberate world from heavy influence of Western financial and banking system. And we are heading in that direction, really, and it's necessary. This is it for now. I hope you will find this video interesting. It's 1 hour and 9 minutes. Wow. So, well, I hope you will find this update interesting, and if so, please hit that like button and leave some commentary about any topic you like. More likes and comments videos will have more chances are that YouTube algorithm won't suppress my channel and my videos in extreme way. And if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Telegram, Twitter, Facebook, or any other platform that you are active on. And if you think this channel is interesting, informative, useful, and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comments. This is it for now. I wish you a great and successful new week, and take care. See you soon.